Good Friday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk, an insider's guide to real estate, life, and the pursuit of happiness. We are live in Charlottesville, across the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love CVille Network. Today's show is presented by Yes Realty Partners, and the very distinguished Keith Smith and the very dynamic Yona Smith, making an incredibly positive impact in this community. Of course, we'll give some props to our newest partner, Shenandoah Joe's.
That's right.
And Dave Fafara. I was hoping, my friend, for a little Shenandoah Joe's on Preston Avenue. That chuckle over there is from the distinguished gentleman, Keith Smith, who is drinking
Coffee.
some Shenandoah
Joe coffee.
Good morning, my friend.
I had my physical this morning at 8 o'clock and went and got my cup of coffee from Joe's.
Well, you're looking sharp.
Thank you.
I hope healthy.
We'll find out after the blood work.
Okay.
I'll see how that goes. When you get to a certain age, you'll know what a physical means, and I'm glad I'm done with it and having a cup of coffee. That's all I got to say.
There you go. Two friends of the program sitting to my stage left, and that's Sean Tubbs.
Left.
And Neil Williamson. Sean Tubbs looking dapper and sharp. How are you, Mr. Tubbs?
I'm looking dapper and sharp.
I have to give you compliments. That was a nice jacket you wore last night at the...
Yes, I wore that to my 30th high school reunion this past weekend, and people kept coming up to me thinking I was a couch.
So, it has that whole patch thing on the elbows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like nice 70s corduroy.
Where did you get that jacket? I'm afraid to ask that question.
Where I get all my finest clothes. Thrift store.
Okay, Sean
Always a thrift
Tubbs.
store.
Don't knock the thrift store.
Oh, no, I
he's
don't.
not.
Not knock it.
This
He's
is where I get it. I
sincere.
mean, they don't fit, but neither do I.
I literally just bought Yona a 1944 Chanel dress for $40.
Wow.
Wow.
So I buy Yona's all dresses, just to let you know.
That's a steal right there.
It was excellent.
Thank you for letting us know that, Keith.
And I didn't even mention the word waffle yet.
Can we welcome our friend
Yeah,
Neil
sure.
Williamson to the program, the president of the Free Enterprise Forum. He's the president of Town Crier Productions. Neil, que pasa? How are you?
I am well. I'm looking forward. We are now in October. There's two things I really love about October.
Can I guess?
Go ahead.
I'm going to say I know Neil well, fairly well. Wine from Well Hung, football, and some brisk weather at Green Hills Golf Club.
All good things. Number one is October is Virginia Wine Month.
Okay.
We love that. But number two, there was a rumor floating about that Batman and Robin will have Catwoman joining them on October 31.
I love it, Neil.
And Mrs. Smith hasn't confirmed this rumor yet, but I had heard that rumor.
I've heard that as well, Yoda.
Really? That's funny.
She's going to be in the latex cat outfit.
Next subject. Because I know Mrs. Smith is watching.
She is watching.
I feel that I will, whatever comes out of my mouth
gonna
next,
get you in
it's
trouble.
going to get me into probably irreversible trouble. So I'm going to try to get a little smarter and not say anything. It's funny you should say that. I was going to talk to you about it after the show, what you wanted to do for
You know,
Halloween.
I'm always up for mischief.
There you go.
Seriously, I'll do whatever. Judah will as well.
Yep.
Don't want to speak for you, Judah. He's our director.
So we're going to have to do it on the 29th this year, because the 29th is the Friday, because Halloween is on Saturday, I think.
That's
Sunday.
right.
Yeah.
Sunday.
Sunday's Halloween.
Sunday.
So
So I'll
Real
have to
Talk
do
would
it.
be on the 29th.
We'll do it. We're going to Batman and Robin. I'm going to brush them off.
Oh, Sean Tubbs posted in the chat box. I'm here too. Well,
I told you.
what
Look, I've
a
got
versatile guy you are.
I've got to have a monitor here, otherwise I don't know if I'm really here.
I like it. Nicholas Herpy says, giddy up, buckle up. This should be a good show. Chanel, wow, look at Keith getting a deal on some class value. What a guy.
Oh, yeah, well,
Herpy.
and Yona will admit this. If I don't go out and buy her stuff, she won't buy it. It might be the Germanic in her that she just doesn't want to spend the money. The Italian in me will spend the money. So
There you go.
Do it.
So these gentlemen, we'll start with a forum that made the news. President of Free Enterprise Forum, president of Town Crier Productions. They hosted we call it a debate? Is it a
No,
A candidate forum.
A candidate forum.
Candidate forum. Brian Pinkston, Juan Diego Wade, Yaz Washington. Sean, we'll start with you. What struck you about the forum?
We finished it quicker than we thought we would, which was good, which I think is, indicative. You've got two Democrats who had told us before that they're kind of really kind of like answering each other's questions at the, like finishing each other's sentences at this point. And that definitely showed up. Yaz Washington, also showed up, and she was there, and very energetic discussions. We ended up getting through 6 of our prepared questions, and then at the very end, we had the questions ask each other candidates. The questions answered. You know what I meant. I'm a writer, not a talker.
You seem to do a pretty good job at the talking part.
Yeah, but I get the words all mixed up, and I write it anyway.
Welcome to my world.
So they were there, really good things. That'll be posted up online. I'll pull out some clips in my newsletter, but we'll talk about it today. But basically, we tried to get questions about some of the issues that are going to be facing the next council in about 3 months. And of course, those are big issues: the tax rate, the school, the future land use map, equity. We got into a little bit about city government reform. As I was just telling Neil, I wish we could have gotten a little bit more into what these candidates think about the future. Well, the future of the government. Like, do we have the right setup that we have?
To find that for those who didn't watch.
You're talking strong mayor, right?
Well, more than that.
Yes or no, more than that. It's a whole gamut.
It's up for the public to decide
Well, I think
what the
the
public
question
wants
was because
eventually.
I watched it and took notes. It was wrapped around: does the city council, what's the position from city counciling, hiring of, working with the town, the city manager. So
Right, but
I can't put words together either.
But to know
it's all right.
behind the
It's Monday.
scenes, Sean and I had talked at length about the idea of city government and how should city government run most efficiently. And we had our questions. We had about 2 minutes left in our standard question time. And what we ended up saying is we can't ask that deep a question and ask it with 1 minute. One of the things that folks, when they see the forum, you'll see me shuffling papers and letting people know there's 1 minute, and then making sure we're asking the questions in the right order, and then asking the questions. And Mr. Tubbs here just had to ask the questions.
Which was great. But I also do believe I also wrote the questions
There's
as
that.
well. So there is that.
Sean, Neil, you asked some questions, buddy. I was watching.
But I think, it's interesting because I think that, Neil and I have been doing this now since 2005, putting on forums in this community through various different forums and different jobs. But I think being able to do this and to be able to have the perspective and to think, to take a view longer than, say, the past 2 or 4 years, to be able to really think back, it's interesting to see what the candidates are and then to think what happens next time. When there's 3, but that's in 2 years.
So on the 15th.
That's a big one.
Very much so.
But I guess, but it was a good forum, and we'll have it posted sometime soon. If people, I think it was the 3rd of the 3 that have been had so far. The Sierra Club had one a couple of weeks ago, and the Senior Statesman had one. Unfortunately, the Senior Statesman audio did not turn out, so we can't go back and listen to that one. So Senior Statesman, if you're listening, you got to put that forum back on again.
And the forum will be posted to the freeenterpriseforum.org website by about 1 o'clock today. If you go under podcasts, you click on that button and you'll have an opportunity to click on the forum. We're currently trimming down some of the edges of the production. We're in post-production right now. As they said in Indiana Jones, top people are working on it.
Yes, and
Is that Brett Wilson?
No.
Okay, because he does a hell of a job as your Greene County Bureau officer.
Yes, he does.
I love you, Brett, and I love you as a coach in volleyball as well, sir.
I think Neil just takes off one hat and puts on another hat and starts his post-production.
If we only knew, right?
well, just to give Neil some credit, I think in terms of the hats, he was wearing 2 last night. He just mentioned that he was keeping time at the same time, and that's a
no
lot of
easy
work.
task.
That's not an easy task to
yeah.
do. And I think that the more of the other thing is that this was the first one that I have seen or done in person since the pandemic. So that was also, it was really nice to be in, well, it wasn't much of a crowd. We had 2 people in the audience, which was 3?
Max.
Oh yeah, well, he's a reporter. I mean, it's like, all right, 3 people in the audience.
But
Max,
the
you're a
nice
good
thing,
reporter.
the nice thing
Don't you
about
think I should get the Batman and Robin outfit? I think these 2 guys.
I love these guys.
Oh no, I've got my
need to-
costume. I've only
love these
I've only
guys.
got one costume for the rest of my life.
There you go.
You have to
the
wait.
thing of it is that one of the things about being in person is you can see body language.
Sure.
And that is something that I think is lost on Zoom.
Sure.
So I encourage folks to watch it with the idea of paying attention to the body language, not just me being angry at Sean, but the idea of how the candidates relate to each other as they're answering questions, because it does tell you something about the people.
Well, what did you learn? Why don't we start there? What did you learn about body language yesterday?
He brought it up. He's answering.
Okay, nice sidestep on that one. What did you learn about body language?
Well, I found that it was interesting when questions were being answered. Some of the candidates were very interested in the answers, and some of the candidates were thinking maybe they were off camera, and they were utilizing that off time to either look something up on their phone or be focused on something other than the candidate answering the question. To be fair, a lot of these questions, a lot of the answers, the questions were actually very different than the other forums. Some of the answers were the same, even though they weren't answering the question that was asked.
So, as we all do a lot of Zooms nowadays, and I can see that because I watched it, and you could feel that they thought they maybe were not on camera, and so when you're, particularly with 3 people in the audience, it's kind of hard to get the audience feel for it. But I kind of want to turn around a little bit. I kind of want to ask what questions or things that you wanted to talk about that you didn't have time to talk about it, because Juan Diego and Brian are going to sit in those 2 seats on the 15th of this month, and I'm love to take some notes and some things that I know Neil will always chime in and ask questions. Sean, you do too during the show, but what didn't you ask that you wish you did?
Well, I think that the number one question for me is regional reform and how the 2 regions should work together. We didn't ask the question, for instance, the population of Albemarle is expected to rise. The cities is as well, but of course we have a weird situation with the census count this year. That's a whole other story. But really that question, a little piece of breaking news for this community. So it was announced that Albemarle Police Chief Ron Lance is retiring sometime next year. So one of the questions is, are there opportunities for the 2 communities to work together? How are they working together? And does council know what's happening? Just a place where this kind of turns up is in our fire rescue service. There was a work session a couple weeks ago. If you're not noticing, our fire rescue service all across the region is changing. Madison County is now all professional firefighters. I believe Buckingham County is the same. So there is this trend, and the question is, when you sit in that seat as a counselor, do you understand these things and how they all fit together, and do you have enough breadth of knowledge to understand the depth of the changes that are facing this country and how we provide services? And the answer is probably not, but it's a steep learning curve. There was one time yesterday, and I'll just say this, where I got some pushback from Brian Pinkston on a question I had asked, and he says, you put 10 questions in there, and I says, well, it's a job where you're going to have to answer 100.
Sure, you're going to have to answer them pretty rapid fire.
Yeah.
But thank you for sharing that, because in the 22nd or the 29th, I haven't set it up yet, I'm going to have one candidate from City Council and one candidate from Albemarle County for that. That was the topic of that conversation is, okay, guys, how are you going to work together?
Yeah.
Well, and the question really is also one of efficiencies. If the goal of government is to provide the efficient provision of government services, is it efficient having the city and county both having a full school system, for instance? It's fascinating the challenges that combining them would be. What about fire, police? All of these things are provisions, and is there a value? What is the value, and what is the cost associated with having separate entities running these departments? Does a city of 10 square miles justify having a full administration for the police department? Or could it be absorbed by Albemarle Police? Now, folks don't realize that I think it was 96 that Albemarle went from being a sheriff's department, being in the law enforcement, to police function, which is a different animal. They're still the sheriff and has responsibilities. But the fact that Albemarle went to that police model, 25, 35 years ago, then would there be a possibility of consolidation, and what would be gained and what would be lost by such a consolidation?
But if all those consolidations happen, then what's left? Right?
Efficiencies of government and more money in taxpayers' pockets is
Or
what's
also-
left. You didn't get a chance to finish your thought on Pinkston and the pushback.
Well, no, that was just an observation of just like, it's a tough job. I mean, being a city councilor is probably tougher than any other I would say being on city council, actually being on any of these boards, is a
That's exactly
tough
right.
job because there's so much. It's more than a legislator because you have no staff. So it's up to you to do research that your staff might not be giving you. So it's going to be interesting. But just to go back to that idea, because you mentioned something just a second ago about what happens after consolidation, Virginia is the only state in the nation where cities and counties are separate. So something here is a fun. I mean, so we just have a new planning director who's coming from a different community, just from a different state, from Massachusetts. It's weird to come here from day one and realize that,
But
this is different.
Massachusetts is a commonwealth, so some of the stuff is similar.
Very similar there, yeah. So
But
he's actually
not-
probably suited. Maybe that's how he got hired because he's from Mass. I was going to do a joke, but it probably wouldn't be appropriate.
Sean,
But-
you can do a joke.
I
if you like.
can't do a joke, but
We promise we'll laugh, even if it's
yeah.
not funny.
But I would say no. I think it's. But I mean,
I think I have the laugh track
Oh,
somewhere
good.
here.
Excellent.
For Sean Tubbs. Go ahead, my friend.
no. But I think that's it, and I think that's certainly the role I have. I don't know if I have. I think I have I'm paying my mortgage, so I think I have a job. But hooray!
Good job.
But that's our role. At least my role is to ask questions and to hopefully is not to have. I don't have answers. Neil might have some answers. I
Neil,
don't.
you're smiling over this, so there's got to be something rolling in between your ears there.
I just think that the community, I want to give a shout out to not only Tubbs, but the whole community. And our friends at the Daily Progress did great work last night. I absolutely loved the headline in the sports page today because it was time sensitive. The game ended late, and it banked off the post of the field goal, and the headline reads, "Shanks so much."
That's right.
That's good stuff, guys.
John Shiflett, my former colleague at the Daily Progress, now the sports editor. Job well done. In fact, I'm looking at the sports front right now on his Facebook page. Thank you very much.
That's impressive that they got that out.
Right?
It was I get the paper delivered at home. It was in my box this morning at 5:30.
That's legit.
That's legit.
What time
You,
did that
you literally
end?
get a newspaper.
It ended
Wow,
after
good for you.
11, so this
Did
is
it-
legit. I watched at the end of the game.
Because my housemate was watching it and he turned it off because he couldn't stomach it, and I just went back downstairs.
After 11. So props to the Daily Progress Sports Department there. Nicholas Erpy has a question for Neil and Sean.
Oh, yes.
Why don't we start with NW for this one here? Do Neil and Sean feel like all of the candidates had a good understanding of the local economic situation? Did they feel like they understood business needs in the local community?
Great question, and one of the questions we did ask.
Yep.
We focused on their understanding not only of economic development, but asked the question if the proposed equivalent 15%, 15 cent
So you have
tax
to
increase.
quantify what equivalent means. So
The
folks
idea is they need
understand
to rate, if all assessments remain the exact same,
Got it.
they would need to raise the tax rate by 15 cents
Today.
to cover what is currently being discussed with regard to schools and the affordable housing plan. So the question that we asked was, how do you think the increasing the taxes by an equivalent 15 cents per hundred helps or hurts economic vitality in the business sector? And I will tell you, I've received calls from property owners, prominent property owners, that are very concerned about this.
Sure.
I believe all the candidates, well, no, Yaz Washington said that would be the last thing I'd want to do. She was very interested in the legislative idea of a 1 cent sales tax that could generate, I think it was $10 million is what she had said, that needs legislative approval. Doing the math, the legislature meets in January. That usually gets to March. The governor would have to sign it. That would be April. You already have your budget.
Yeah.
So it was kind of an aside of some other way to fund it. But I think Juan Diego Wade and Brian Pinkston both spoke to the idea of the government supporting businesses, especially through the COVID grants and other things. And I will say, around this region, governments were rather nimble, supporting things like tents outside for closing parking to allow folks to have outside seating. Those were all clever ideas to help businesses go forward.
Maybe this wonderful idea of open container, a little on the
Is
downtown.
that Dad?
It's on hold, I would say.
Yeah, I would
A
anticipate
good way to say is on
It's on
hold,
hold.
but it'll
On
come back.
ice. So maybe what, Q1, Q2 next year as it gets a little warmer?
I think it's going to take a lot more. Well, for that particular thing, I think it will
So why
take
don't
a
we
lot of support.
quantify what we're talking about,
Talking
folks?
about the beer garden
Thank
on
you.
the downtown mall.
Or it could be other places. But yes, I mean, I think that the idea of this designated outdoor refreshment area was floated and then was sort of
Kiboshed by
it
a
doesn't.
couple folks on council.
A majority were skeptical.
Yes.
I think I would say.
However, there is a wine garden open this weekend, tomorrow, at the Fried Chicken Festival in Gordonsville.
Oh,
Yeah.
So there'll be 5 wineries there.
What one of them would be?
I believe Well Hung Vineyard will be there.
when, what can you do for dinner after this festival?
There
if
you
were
go.
still hungry,
There
you
you
could go to Well Hung, the restaurant.
Or the Ice House. I mean,
Yeah.
Or take a little further down to Patch Brewery. have
Patch
a beer.
Brewery.
So
Gordonsville is the place to be this Saturday.
We love
I would
Gordonsville.
I would agree with that. Bring a designated driver.
There you go.
If I could get back to Nick's question for just a
Please.
second, I don't think anybody really understands the full extent of this economy, and I think that's sort of the really interesting story here is that there's a lot of story to tell here. I believe this week, yesterday, I mean the bio sector in this community, for instance. I think there's a lot that just flies under the radar or just exists in its silos. A couple things are happening in the next couple weeks. CVille BioHub is having their CVille BioHub days this week to sort of promote the industry. There's over 65 companies. There's a lot happening here, and I think that story is waiting to be told. Another one, of course, the Code Building. I believe they're having their grand opening next week. But of course, that's not all. There's lots of entrepreneurs. If you follow what the CIC is doing, there's a lot of energy in this community to do things and for entrepreneurialism. I'm an entrepreneur myself, trying to figure out how to make money doing what I see and trying to figure out how to capitalize this. So I think that's a very good question, and I think it's one
the
that
essence
will.
of the question is if we increase our business tax base, then in theory, it will decrease our residential tax base. Henceforth, there's 15 cents.
Well, but if you yes, but if you increase that 15 cents on commercial properties,
There you go.
I don't know about the Miller organization, but others would likely pass along that increase to their
Our
tenants.
tenants. Our rents go up 4.75% every year, my friend.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's the tenants that bear the brunt of the increased tax exposure. And you know what? That leads to tenant turnover, and then it leads to new bodies coming into the building. I am definitely not a huge fan of the tax increases when it's associated with real estate, because it's often the most marginalized that get left with this added exposure. Would
Right,
you
but
agree
also
with
your
that?
businesses get challenged.
I would agree with both of those statements, but it was an interesting comment that one of the candidates made yesterday, which I actually noted down. Well, maybe the tax assessments will go up, and the reason it was interesting to me of note, I took actually account of how many times the word affordable housing, or the two words of affordable housing, was used. With the exception of one or two answers, that word was used multiple times in each thing. So, you kind of, to me, my brain kind of goes, well, hold it. If we're talking about affordable housing, on the other hand, you're kind of talking about raising tax assessments, the two values don't kind of go together.
Well, I have to channel my inner Tim Holbert, who famously told local body, former president, CEO of the Chamber of Commerce,
right.
who said, how are you making housing more affordable by making it more expensive?
Yeah.
And one of the factors
Bravo.
that is said, so Mayor Walker has said that her support would have, well, her support now, but a lot of it is contingent on the tax relief projects, but that still takes out a lot of money off the table at the same time. So it's once you start carving out those exceptions, you're not going to get as much money. You're raising taxes to pay. And I think that you have to be careful with that, because again, a lot of it is, we've had 5 city managers now in the last 4 years. We have had a staff overturning, and these details, they get lost, and I think that's
Institutional memory.
the institutional memory totally goes away.
Very quickly.
And that's kind of what I'm hoping I can continue to do for this community, is to be part of that, but just to remind people of things that happened back in the past.
You're doing that.
Because, well, I think, so I think that, because again, even if that sales tax referendum, so if the General Assembly, and it is a big if it allows the county, the city to levy that tax, that would be a referendum in November, and it still has to pass.
And tax increase referendums rarely pass.
Yep.
Bond referendums pass.
That's exactly right.
Tax increase
Well,
referendums rarely
explain.
pass.
I know why, but explain why that happens.
The bond referendum is sold as this is how you get your new school.
That's exactly right.
They also tell you exactly how much it will be increase of the debt burden for the locality. But I will say, in my 17 years, I think only 2 bond referendums put forward by localities that I can think of did not pass.
Because it's project specific, right?
Yes.
It's tangible. We're going to get this is how much it's going to cost.
Albemarle's last time around, they made a point to have an improvement in every voting district. That was not an accident.
Sure.
And I think here it's but it goes back to, will the General Assembly allow it to happen? And we could have a different General Assembly in a month month and a half.
The 2 words affordable housing came up literally dozens of times. Do you think any of the candidates really understand that what that means?
I will.
What does affordable housing even mean today?
Correct.
It's a tricky word. I mean, I don't know if it's a good word, but I mean, it's
cliche
either
now, right?
I don't think it
means different things to different people.
There's a federal definition,
Right, sure.
the housing and urban definition, which is so broad at 80% of the area median income.
You're missing the second part of that.
Well, the 30%. Yes.
That's exactly
so
right.
the ability for somebody who is at that, you're not supposed to pay more than 30% of your income towards your house. 45% if you calculate transportation costs too. So that's the definition. But of course, a lot of people are underneath that definition. So the word I always use is you have to have some intervention to make that unit be sustainable, to be built, for one thing, and to remain below market, either through a subsidized or a guarantee that's backed off by a tax credit, or you're just very generous and
you do like we did.
and you've decided as a business to just leave money on the table. But there's very few of those.
But they're out there doing this for a variety of reasons now. But the thing is, if you look at the spectrum of affordable housing, you have a spectrum of income. So of course you have folks. It's not Lake Wobegon where all children are above average. The idea is you have folks in the income streams that are making 20% AMI. Well, a home purchase is not really an option for them based on that financial model. But rental market is, with subsidy and with assistance. So there's not one answer. I heard the term somewhere, silver buckshot. I don't remember who you said that. But there are many answers to
We
these
totally
questions.
stole that from a very
Robert Liberty.
dear friend of mine, Robert Liberty.
You
and
pretty
the guy
much
from Portland.
passed it on as Keith Smith.
and he said, and I have this in writing, that I'm allowed to use it as often as possible.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you.
But the bottom line is that the solutions to affordable housing are not monolithic. There is
The
not
story
one
here is, be
solution.
careful what you say. I might steal it and claim it as my own.
Well,
Janet and I giving you some props.
Who dat?
Janet and Ed Rapture.
Rapture.
Oh, hi,
Oh,
Janet.
yeah.
So, but I haven't heard an answer to my question, right? The answer to my question is: do you think they use the 2 words so often? Are they just using it to use it, or do they really understand the impact of the
Is
2
it a
words?
buzzword to win an election?
Thank
No,
you.
I think in this case it's just you have so little time in those forums.
Sure.
But I think though that the community conversation that's past that, there's a lot of those conversations, and I think there's a lot to be written about the solutions too. And I think that that there's money coming from the state, as you know, Keith, as the chair of the Central Virginia Regional Housing Partnership. There's a lot going on. Is it enough? That's a very good question. There's probably a lot more that can be done. But I think there was actually stuff from your meeting last week that was really interesting in terms, but I didn't know if it was on record, even though you said it in public.
It's
but,
public. It's on record.
Well, no,
If I
the
said
one
it-
that was really interesting, just as an example, was
unless I choose not to acknowledge it, that wasn't on record.
well,
was it stellar what I said?
No, it was the.
Oh, okay. Then
It
it's
just
not- wasn't on the
shows
record.
how Piedmont Housing Alliance, for instance,
sure.
Piedmont Housing Alliance is now aggregating different project-based
Correct.
low-income housing tax credit to make it, actually, in your words, to make it a more attractive project
Sure.
to get that funding. So it's details, but I think that's kind of it, is that when you're up there, can you have the command of all of these details? And housing is very much part of that spectrum.
Because what matters?
Elections matter.
Elections matter. Yeah, but what I was trying to articulate in that conversation is that what we were able to do in the land trust with partnerships with PH and partnerships with Albemarle County, so forth and so on, where we took $140,000 and turned it into nearly $2 million worth of property. So my comment I was trying to make is, don't tell me it takes a lot of money to do this.
Right.
It's relationships.
But you have to go to, I'm going to say it right, the FLUM, which the future land use map, because
I won't.
right now, that was our first question, and probably the one that I think took the longest time for Sean to read.
It was the longest question.
I had enough time while you were asking that question to
go get a cup of coffee?
refill my glass of wine.
There you are.
But the thing is that if we don't have the densities available to do the building, I don't care if you're Thomas Jefferson Land Trust, I don't care if you're Jerry Miller Enterprises, or Joe's Construction, you can't build it if it's illegal. So we need to have places to build within the city, smaller
and the
units,
county.
and the county, and the urban ring, smaller units that will allow for housing affordability.
Sure.
But even at that, it is close to impossible without utilizing the land trust model for a private individual to build, literally construct a home at 80%, that's affordable at 80% AMI with the current land prices.
Well, it's not even that. We were talking about it earlier this week about the prices of lumber, and I took a note at the time and didn't get an opportunity to say it. Lumber came down, but guess what's gone up? Anything
Everything
that's
else.
related to aluminum.
Because those prices were being, the market was holding those prices down because it couldn't take it, and the lumber prices.
Was it listening to an interesting NPR report on the way in this morning, which I was not aware of? Looks like China is having power issues, and they're shutting their factories down to like 3 hours to 6 hours a day, which ultimately is going to impact us, I would think, at some point in time.
I think we're seeing a lot of ripple effects from a lot of different things as the system we've had in place and building for the last 30, 40 years is showing strains. And that's the question, is that how do they get fixed? And those could be opportunities for manufacturing here. I mean, I think the world we live in is different than the one it was, I think. And I think that there's opportunity. I'm hoping there's opportunity in that. And I do think that, just to the affordable housing question, it's my hope that housing, I think that the debate going on with the groups such as Livable CVille, which is a group that's out there, and then the other stuff, I think sometimes it's become a fight, but at the same time, the conversation's more fascinating if you don't fight. And you try to figure out, okay, well, how? So, for instance, I've been trying to figure out a way to lead tours through some of the areas that are going to be up comp planned at least, but just to see, all right, what's the reality here? What would this really look like? And I think if we can start doing that, maybe we can start to build this community up by building, as you said, better relationships.
So on the 15th, one of the great things I love about doing the show is this long form format where we can dive into a question a little bit more than you guys could, because you were very restricted on time on that end of it. But part of what was exciting about today is I'm going to ask the two candidates, we're going to talk a little bit more about affordable housing than a couple of 1 minute or 2 minute answers. So thank you for sharing.
Well, I'll just say, again, just to give you a plug for your stuff, the partnership stuff. I mean, I'm really interested. So my newsletter yesterday.
First of all, it's not mine.
Well, but you're the chair. So,
The Regional Housing Partnership.
The Regional
Not mine.
Central Virginia Housing Partnership. That's the us. The you I'm saying there, I guess.
Thank you.
But my newsletter yesterday kind of captured a lot of stuff that happened at your September
I didn't see me quoted
22nd
in it,
meeting.
I'm just saying.
You were written out. Unfortunately, you
I
didn't
didn't
make
see my
the
name,
cut.
I'm
You
just
didn't make
saying.
the cut. But you've got some great forums coming up. And the one that I think is really interesting, I think in February, is going to be on the religious organizations and what role churches could play.
Sure.
I personally, and I am maybe slightly vested in this, I'd like to know, people who know me will know this is not a joke, because it's not, but what if we could build apartment units next to a school in some way?
Or on top of, which was a question we got from the public last week.
Yeah. So the question is, what are the unique ways? Well, you see what PHA is doing. I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, but look at how they're working with Park Christian Church. Look at how they're working with MACA to resurrect a project that had died. Actually, City Council well, they did okay.
So there's a project we're working with PH and a land trust with Abundant Life. Jump in here, Neil.
Well, I think I remember vividly, this isn't dates myself, 14 years ago or so, the then chair of the executive director of the planning district, Harrison Rue, was very upset when Fifth Street came forward and there was a large shopping center without apartments on top of them.
Oh, this was
the Fifth Street extended.
Yeah.
The question became one of, no one will finance it. You couldn't get financing for a commercial project with apartments above it. Now, if you are financing with bonds and you want to do that to increase your housing stock, what is stopping you?
So I was really interested in Yaz Washington's answer, and I believe it was the answer to a first rather lengthy question from Mr. Tubbs. She brought up Kim's Market. Was it your first question?
It was actually the long question that Sean gave, 35 seconds, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, as anybody who watches the show, I've been passionate about Kim's Market and trying to do something to it. And the vision is exactly as you just outlined. It's zoned for it. You can easily do that. You can put commercial below. You can put apartments above it. It's right next to a bus line. Walking distance to UVA.
It's the entry point into a historic corridor, an African-American corridor.
That's exactly right.
It's in shambles right now.
It's not in shambles.
Shambles
it's
is a
actually
bit much.
It's been fixed up. It's being
What are you
used,
talking about?
Right now it's being
Kim's?
used. Yeah, right now it's being used.
I couldn't disagree with you.
I toured it
but
a
it's
couple
being
weeks
used.
ago.
But you can't say it's shambles because it's being used as a construction staging
Being
ground
used
for
by a
somebody else.
subcontractor of UVA.
Yeah.
As their Charlottesville headquarters. They're based out of Harrisonburg.
So it has a
Exactly.
big chain link fence around it.
So in other
You
words,
can't
it's saving
see
them
through it.
costs so they don't have to drag
You're gonna let
everything
me
from
speak,
one
Mr.
place to the
Tubbs,
other.
so okay.
No, I'm not.
Got it.
No, but I mean, but also that's a temporary situation. So if there was a project to do it, first you got to acquire the lands. Maybe those conversations are going on now.
Well, Mr. Tubbs, if
I'm
you
looking
let me
for a
finish
wink.
speaking, I would.
Looking for a wink. Is
They're
there a
not.
wink?
They're not happening now because the widow who owns the property has an unrealistic price for this piece of land and this
And it has
dilapidated structure. Is that fair?
It has a 4 in front of it.
Yeah, right.
And
it should have.
It should have a 1 to
Right.
somewhere.
But isn't
to
that
a
the
2.
market?
Yeah. Ask what you will. She has property rights. If she chooses to sell it at wherever she wants, that's right.
I do not disagree with that at all. What I was trying to do is put a bow on what Neil was saying, but Mr. Tubbs wouldn't let me finish.
That's my job.
Have you had this conversation prior to the show with my wife?
Yeah.
No.
I didn't buy her address if that's what you're asking.
So size 0, by the way. So the reality of it is, in order for this to happen, I was trying to play off of what Neil was saying. This is going to require a plethora of people involved in it, to include the government, right? To include the city. The city has to take a progressive role in this.
He knows
thing.
this
Well, but at
property
the same
inside and
time,
out.
but at the same time,
4 years. I mean, folks, for 4 years I've been banging this drum on this, and if I could write
With Chris.
if I could write a $4 million check for that, I would do it.
but you'd have to but it has to get in line between all the other projects. Friendship Court, which has $10 million,
Neil's hands going like this, so
which has 10,
I
and
see
then
it out of my peripheral
not
vision.
to mention the public housing sites. I mean, that's
and
where your
he's
city
not
dollars
Italian,
are.
so he must be really excited.
I have to say that part of this conversation draws back to a conversation Jerry had yesterday.
Oh.
And talking about how people react. And I think governments are much more, and communities are much more like Generation Z, whereby you don't give a mandate, you have to get them to buy in. So you have to have the collaborative thing. And so I think the idea, I remember Sean and I walked, this would be 10 years ago, we walked that Cherry Avenue corridor with the Charlottesville Planning Commission. And 7 years ago, okay, it's still,
I know.
Was that the Planning Commission or the Thomas Jefferson Planning?
It was the Planning
it was
Commission.
Planning
Before
It was
they
a plan-
hired us to
yeah,
go
it was a
ahead and do
Planning
it,
Commission field trip. And you could, it was very helpful to see what open spaces were available, but there was a need for that community to be engaged in that conversation. Because if it's not, it doesn't happen. I don't care
Amen.
what check you write.
And I think that's kind of what I mean is that I don't disagree. It's like that could be a fantastic project. And I think that if a consortium of people come together to make it happen, that'd be great. But you also have other things in the Cherry Avenue corridor, which is, you also do have that Cherry Avenue small area plan, which kind of hints to the community that bought in that you're not going to have high densities there, even though that might not realistically be the best thing.
Well, you have to engage them in the process, and that's what you do.
Yeah.
But this particular property has almost all the right boxes checked, except for the one.
Yeah,
Somebody's
the
got
price.
to write a $4 million check.
Right.
Or the property continues as it is
Sure.
until such a time as that property is valued by someone else at that value.
And just to give you a sense of look at how much money University Tires put into rebuilding the building at the corner of Roosevelt, Brown, and Cherry. They didn't tear it down. So I think that I don't think you're going to see Cherry Avenue change that much in the next 10 years because there's so much else to do. But we'll see. There's another building right up. A nonprofit has bought 2 properties at the corner of 7th and a Half, and I walked past it yesterday, and I thought they were going to tear it down and maybe do something there. There's electricians. They're going to renovate that house instead, which I think which is not what I thought they would be doing.
So to give you a little kudos on your walking tours that you do and you post on Facebook
And Twitter. Riding the bus.
riding the bus.
I gave it up last week.
and
Not
what-
the
You got
bus.
your car fixed?
No, I gave up the Twitter.
Oh, gotcha. You're not on Twitter anymore?
I'm on Twitter. I just it's not a good use of my time as a reporter.
Okay, you create content and you need these social channels to get
No,
that
I get-
content out there.
I'm doing all right.
Okay, all right. I'm just trying to,
No,
I like your stuff.
But no, I was going to say though, I think that's it. Is like we need to walk these, and I would say I would love to see people from the city and the county go out to Palmyra, to go to Standardsville, to go to Lovingston, to go to Scottsville, all of these other places which have some of the bones for future communities. Existing communities that I think are waiting to have.
If
life breathed
on
into
Saturday
them.
you walk up the street in Gordonsville, you'll get a feel for that streetscape project and how that has really renovated.
It depends how many stops you make. You may lose the feeling after a while, depending on how many stops.
And we should give some props to Chris Henry and Stony Point. For what
Absolutely,
they're doing in Gordonsville.
absolutely. There's just turning Gordonsville around, actually meeting with them next week out there to take a look at some of the new stuff they're getting ready to do out there. But the kudos I was trying to give to you 2 gentlemen, one is the walking and the comment that you made about the walking tour on it. So one of the, if you drive on a vehicle in a car, you kind of lose the feel for a neighborhood. So if I'm looking for a home for a client in a neighborhood, and if it's walkable, I will always walk the neighborhood a little bit so you get a feel for it. So I just wanted to give a shout out to that it's a whole different feeling if you physically slow down, take an opportunity and walk a neighborhood. You walk away with a different vibe, or take a bicycle through it to a neighborhood.
And when you go with other people, and these are the walks, I need to set this up. I've been talking with a friend of mine about walking the Cherry Avenue corridor, not the section we walked in, but the more of the residential. Because I do think I think that, and I would like, and this is just it's not going to happen, but I'd love to see a walking city council candidate debate that's in the field to talk about some of these future
great
land
idea.
use issues, because there are questions about it, and I think that there's a comment from Bill McChesney in the chat about.
I was just going to ask that.
I know.
Well done.
About the
Sure.
stats of these folks. Hey, but I think that I personally think what's been lost in this future land use map again is it's become this binary us versus them thing when there's a lot more potential, and also this is not the town that it was when I moved here in the early 2000s.
It's not the same as 87.
Exactly, but it is based on previous plans, and I know that we can say if plans are good or bad, but they're guides, and it's what the development community and it's what can be made to be built. The RST development was approved since we last talked by the Board of Supervisors, 5-1 vote, which was, and the one vote was
Sheila Pistol-Curtley.
That's her district.
Yeah.
And, which I think is interesting there. But of course, it's.
I don't have a problem with B voting no when she's representing the district, when so many of her constituents were opposed to this. I'm glad the project was pushed through.
But what does the comprehensive plan say?
Yeah, it does say that it's supposed to be density there,
Yeah.
right? So I get where both sides are coming from.
And
what is it that matters?
Elections matter.
Elections
There you go.
matter.
Elections matter.
yeah.
Bill's got a point for Neil and Sean, okay? And Bill McChesney, He says this opinion runs contrary to Keith's opinion here. So jump in here as well.
Sure.
Bill believes, and he's very engaged with local government. He watched the last planning commission meeting. There was a planning commissioner, and I'm paraphrasing for you, Bill. There's a planning commissioner in the last planning commission meeting that said, I don't want to train another city council on FLUM. Okay? And Bill says that he believes before this council is off the dais, which is what, December 31st, that FLUM will be approved.
Yes,
You say yes to that.
I do. And in fact, we said yes last night during the.
So I've never said it wouldn't be from this thing. It may.
I said yes before, and you disagreed with me.
I did. You really?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I do. I
We'll
also
go to the
remember
videotape.
that. I remember that as well.
Warner Wolf.
So Bill McChenzie, Neil Williamson, who's a connected guy, says
Thank you.
yes,
Thank you
that
for that.
FLUM gets approved with this current council.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, I still keep in mind. I still have 2 CVille plans together meetings to listen to. I'm a bit behind.
So to defend myself for what it's worth, that was when the mayor was still in the race.
It's true.
And in my opinion, at that point, I felt that she had a good chance of getting elected at that point in time. With the mayor not there, I think you guys.
I think
are-
if the mayor was still in the race, she probably finishes in the second spot behind Juan and nips Brian out of there.
Well, that's what we said in the beginning.
You can't.
It doesn't matter now.
No, Pocahontas says you can't step in the same river twice.
There you
So
Well, I understand that, but I just wanted to quantify
I'm gonna use that.
the comment so everybody goes back and looks at the tape. That's what I was talking about and building it or building around.
you're
So I
trying to
was-
provide context to your incorrect statement.
I was trying to be a politician and walk it back. I was trying-
So you are uncertain.
I don't like to make predictions. It's
Okay.
Yeah.
that's not
Trust
the
me, it
business
comes
I'm
back
in.
and bites you. Trust me.
But I would say though that the conversation is
Smart guy.
I really my hope would be it wouldn't have been so unnecessarily divisive, because at the end of the day, if you have a city that's divided by this thing, you're still going to have the implementation
talk
to
about
do.
what
And
really
the implementation is what's going to matter.
That's what I'm going to say. Let's
And-
talk about what really matters. It's not, I mean, the FLUM or FLAM or
Future land use map.
whatever we're calling it.
Can't do the acronym.
Yeah, it's a terrible acronym.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a terrible acronym.
But the thing
The
is,
second worst acronym
Like-
behind,
RIP.
Yeah.
residential infield project.
the-
And they're so
Yeah.
proud of
Oh, those are dead.
No,
Yeah.
no. In
No, no,
Portland,
no,
they-
these-
RIP
Portland.
in Portland.
That was it.
It was his joke.
Thank you. Thank you. Here all day.
I actually like that as well, Sean. You got
Halloween.
good
well,
humor.
well
I
played.
try.
Go ahead, Neil.
Anyway, sorry to
I
interrupt.
was trying to be serious for a fraction of a second.
well, the thing is, one of the things, our question last night was, when you get to the zoning, this new council will have the responsibility to enact the zoning code. And that is already been paid for. We have a consultant paid to do this. They did the affordable housing plan, they're doing the FLUM and the comprehensive plan update, and they've been contracted for doing the zoning rewrite.
So-
But in that context, the question becomes, if you have residents upset about that zoning, speaking at public hearings for upzoning, how do you balance those concerns with the concerns of the non-residents, the folks that can't be there because they aren't here yet?
So I'm going to go on record today on video that the FLUM, the future land use map, will get approved in this council. But I'm going to ask the question a little bit differently. So you were right.
Thank you.
In case I saw the look on your face. Neil, you were right. I believe I owe you some alcohol of some sort, so we will take care of that after the show. But do you think that the new zoning ordinance is going to get done during the next council member? Because we just mentioned we got 3 new seats coming up, so that means whatever happens with that really has to happen before June or July.
Well, not exactly. What has to happen with that has to be enacted by December 31, 2023. I do believe that the council that is seated January 1, 2022, will vote on a zoning ordinance prior to the new council coming in 2024.
Prior to the new council coming in or prior to the election season starting?
I think it's going to be an issue during the election season.
Got it. That's the question I
And
wanted to ask.
it'll be discussed during the election season, and you may have lame ducks voting for the zoning ordinance.
Roger, got it, yeah. That was the question I was trying to get to. Is this going to be the hot election item for the next cycle?
Based on the
who knows?
timelines that I've seen for CVille plans together, I believe they're going to do this, try and get this done
Before.
really before January 2024. But I don't know for certain that they're going to be able to do that. A lot will depend upon the manner in which the new council acts together and works together, and what who's the mayor.
Well, that's I'm about to say, that's a suit, I can't say flum, but whatever it is.
Oh, you can say it.
I can say it? Thank
It's
you.
a good word.
Thank
Just
you, flum.
not a-
Thank you, Sean. I was really worried about that. Flum. The reality of it is, we don't have a mayor really at the moment, right? We have a lame duck mayor until it's
Well,
done.
I wouldn't say, I would never call her a
I
lame
would
duck.
say that the mayor that we have now is more impactful and dynamic than she's ever been, because she realizes her tenure's expiring. She's mindful of her legacy, and she's trying to fast track policy before her tenure ends.
Hence
I mean, the last council meeting,
Yeah.
she legitimately was trying to strip power away from Chip Boyles. And in the bottom of the ninth inning, did you guys watch that?
I did.
Over a 7-hour plus meeting.
I did, and it is fascinating to watch and to see how the city staff, including the city attorney, needed to weigh in to make certain that things were done properly.
You're speaking Dillon Rule State, and that couldn't have happened.
You're talking Robert's rules.
Robert's rules,
Robert's
as
rules.
well as what is in the city's charter, how a charter gets changed. That being said, the mayor is well within her rights to ask the question, hey, if we wanted to change this, how would we change it?
That's
That
exactly
is, I think that's a great question to ask.
I agree with you, but was it done the right way? Should it not have been added to the agenda so the other counselors were prepared for the topic and not blindsided in it at the end of a 7-hour meeting?
There are always inartful moments in our lives. I've certainly had my fair share. But I think that questions sometimes can't wait for agenda preparation. Keith's working on his agenda right now for the December meeting of the Thomas Jefferson Land Trust. That's how government works. Sometimes the questions are pressing. I actually think this community and all communities need to work harder on asking hard questions.
And I would
I
say,
think it was clearly within her rights to ask the question. So she can come in at the 11th hour. It's the prerogative of the chair to ask a general question as you asked it. That is well within her rights to do that. Now, the debate that followed may be a little different.
With the city attorney? With
Well,
Lisa?
so the chair or the mayor in this case can ask staff. Correct me if I'm wrong, Neil. Ask a specific question of staff and say, "Look, can we do A? I would like you to bring this back to the next meeting. I would like to know, can I plant grass upside down? Am I allowed to do that?" And Mr. County Attorney, Mr. or Mrs. City Attorney, City Manager, can you bring that back to us at the next meeting?
But it is reasonable and rational and efficient. If such a question is asked, what would it take to get that done? Well, it's going to take at least 3 votes. Well, do I task staff with a 50-hour project if there aren't 3 votes, at least 3 people interested in the answer?
and Mac, let's get back to the unanswered question that we didn't ask, that I wish we could have devoted more time to. This is a question that I think is very active. Is the system of government that we have in Charlottesville the right one? And that's, I think,
Well, you kind of asked that a little bit.
No, I know. I meant last night.
Yeah.
But we didn't really get into it in
Sure.
terms of asking that specific question, which of course gets down to the ward system. And traditionally in this community, the Democratic Party, the old mainstream Democratic Party, have been vehemently opposed to changing.
Because they own the local government.
And this goes back to in 1981. There was a referendum that passed
So-
to
so
move
let-
to a
let's- so
wards.
for those who are
and then
listening-
that council, though,
Yeah.
but that council later brought it back and killed it in '82.
But a ward system is representation by geographic area. All of the city councilors are elected at large in Charlottesville. When we were meeting with the candidates, both Democratic candidates are from the same neighborhood. So that couldn't happen in a ward system.
You're talking Pigston and Wade.
Yes.
And, but then in 2004, there was an election task force. These are documents we could pick up tomorrow and start to debate. And actually, that might be an interesting topic for a show like this, would be to actually bring in some experts, maybe to talk about that.
I'd bring in Dave Norris. He was very involved in some of these discussions many moons ago.
He and I are going to be speaking together at the Virginia Governor's Housing Council. Looking
When is
forward to
that?
it. November.
November.
Marine Corps birthday, November 11th.
Got it. But I think those are the things, that's governance, and that's what a democracy should do. It should take a look at itself every now and then and say, is this system the one that's helping to develop the services? And of course, that is the biggest question facing these counselors.
I never really understood why we didn't have, in the counties, we call them districts. In the city, you call them wards. For those who are listening and watching, every city council represents the city as a whole. So does the other boards. Ned Galloway is the chair, but he represents the county, Albemarle County as a whole. I never understood that, why that was never done that way.
It's... well, I won't take up your time with that, but I would say...
I would love to know the answer to that.
Oh, I don't know the answer, but I just know it's there to be studied. It's like it's...
Do you know the answer why?
It's rooted in the fabric, and there is got to be, whenever we look at history, there's ugly parts of history.
Sure.
And there are ugly parts of history that keeps white males in power in Charlottesville.
Sure.
And I would
That's the reason why I think it'd be so important to go to a ward system.
You are pro ward system?
I think you should do that. I think the
problem with the ward system, playing devil's advocate for the sake of a talk show, is it's going to create career politicians.
But I think
no, I disagree with that.
I think sometimes institutional knowledge among your elected officials is good. Right now, we're about to have a time when we had 4 one-term counselors. 4 one-term counselors.
So
that puts the balance of the power in staff,
Yes.
which means a lot of stuff doesn't get
This goes back to
done.
a comment that I've made more than once on this show that I did make on the record, that I will stand by, is I think these local governments should have staff members specifically
I agree with that.
dedicated to that, because I will tell you, since 1987, I've worked with every single one of these jurisdictions, and it's a sad part when I walk into Fluvanna County, and I have more institutional memory on what has happened in Fluvanna County than the staff does.
Yeah, but you're an anomaly in a lot of ways
Well,
because you're so engaged.
That's an understatement.
This is a show of anomalies.
I don't think it was the engaged part he was talking about.
You're not the traditional Fluvanna County citizen.
but
I'll put it that way. You're much more engaged.
I'm not normal.
The challenge with having
Thanks, Jerry.
elected officials having staff on the local level is that it becomes fiefdoms and it becomes opportunities for graft. And frankly,
and
I get
the
that.
argument
I
to
get
justify my statement about the ward system creates the career politician, 2 words, and Malik. Ward system.
Yeah.
Well, but no,
Whitehall.
I think
But
that
that's only because nobody ran against
Well,
us.
I mean, who would
For
run?
2 of the
and
times.
why does
Diantha, ward system.
But there's no one to...
but there's no opposition right now for any Albemarle County supervisor.
I feel
Yeah.
like we're talking over each other at the moment, but this is the reason why we came up with this collectively idea of doing this coffee with the candidates, because a lot of
Brought to you by
Shenandoah Joe.
There you go.
Cheers, everybody.
is this how it's done? Is this how I got to do it to get big
Yeah, I mean,
sponsors?
if you start it,
I'm
I'll make
going
a
to Iron
suggestion.
Paffles just after
Sean,
this.
just keep being yourself, bro.
I'll make a suggestion. I would love to see your fantastic podcast include interviews with people. I think it would take it to a different level.
There are. It's just timing. It's just timing. But going back to the government thing, I think that's kind of...
I just love local news.
It's.
I don't think we finished this whole ward conversation.
Well,
Yeah,
I know,
we-
I'm trying to go back to it, but I think that one thing that we would all benefit from is to all of us, each of us, to get on the train or whatever to get to other localities and see what's happening. I just recently spent time at my high school reunion in Lynchburg, and they have so there I am Saturday morning, like all the kids do. I'm in the little coffee shop. It was packed, by the way. Lynchburg is hopping.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sitting there doing it, and I'm looking at the city council minutes because I wanted to see how their government works. And of course, they have 7. There's 4 elected by ward, 3 elected at large. And that gives constituent service. I don't think that there's a person who represents where I live in the city, for instance, which means I don't have one counselor I can call up and say, what's your way?
So look, all these things always have yin and yang, right? They always cut both ways.
However, how many local governments are represented by all at-large members? How many?
I
Do you
work.
have that answer?
I don't. I'm
I don't.
asking Keith. I thought he would know.
Well, I can tell you within our footprint, There's only one.
Okay.
I could tell you on the other side of the mountain, there's none that I know of, and I could tell you the
Town
field.
of Scottsville.
Well, that's
That's two.
too
but
small,
that's
though.
that's a town.
Well,
That's a
one.
town.
Well,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Standersville's the same way.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
But
three.
Harrisonburg, I know there's 5, but I don't know if they're ward or at large.
Yeah, so, I mean, with all due respect, it'd be very difficult to break Scottsville up into
Sure, 'cause it's so tiny.
multiple districts. So,
But it's an at-large.
But if you can break
Fluvanna
up
versus Albemarle?
But if you can break up Washington D.C. into ward system, you certainly can break up Charlottesville into a ward system.
And it's
you're
happened
not
before.
fearful of the career politician in the ward system?
that's just a matter of
I am in belief of the citizenry
agreed.
in Charlottesville, and I believe that when you have a career politician, Marion Barry, there will be someone else who comes up and challenges
was
that
that
person.
the first time or the second time?
The second time. It's
Second
much
time.
more interesting.
Much after he came
Set
out.
me
for-
up.
I
was
wasn't-
living up there that
I
time.
literally wasn't going to let that one slide, Neil. Sorry, man.
But no, I think it's an ongoing conversation.
This is
and,
fun.
And
Yeah,
it's that's the thing.
Is anybody
guys.
watching, by the way?
Yeah, we got comments. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
So people want to hear the pros. Nick wants to hear the pros of the ward system. We're talking about that now. Bill is anti-flum, but pro ward system. Dave Norris, welcome to the show.
Love you, Dave. Looking
Yeah.
forward to hanging out with you in Norfolk. And
Did
Roy-
he see like a sign in the sky and he came?
You put up the Norris signal.
It's like we heard Norris and he came flocking
Rory
in.
Stolzenberg, welcome to the show. Planning Commissioner of Charlottesville.
I think I would look better in the Batman suit than him, but I'm just saying.
Dave, here's a stat from Rory. So if you're not following Planning Commissioner Stolzenberg on
Oh,
Twitter,
you need to do that.
He creates fantastic content and brings it to light through social. How about the stat that the median value of the homes owned by anti-upzoning email writers was $730,000?
I really appreciate that information, Rory, and Rory knows that I agree with him more often than I disagree with him, but I'm not in lockstep. I don't like that statistic
Why do you say that?
because I said this in a blog post this morning, whether you've been here 40 years or you've been here 40 minutes, you're a resident of this community, and I think your voice matters. So the fact that the well-heeled folks happen to be weighing against the flum and those with less well-heeled, that's just creating class conflict. Let's talk about the flum, not how much money my house is worth.
Well, I mean, I think that's a very fair comment. I think what Rory's doing, he's a clever, smart guy, is he's bringing up the price tag number so the public gets disenchanted with these anti-density group because he's essentially labeling them as wealthy, rich,
Yeah,
and well-heeled.
Creating
person-
class
Yeah.
division.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's what he's doing. Yeah.
Well, is it? Well, I was
No,
gonna-
finish that
no,
thought.
No.
You don't want to finish
No,
that
I
thought?
actually.
You rarely stop.
I actually thought about what I was going to say.
Keith found his filter.
That's the first time I've ever seen that.
Yeah, and how many? 200
200 plus shows.
12
I've
shows.
never seen you do that.
Yeah,
He's practicing to be Batman. He has to keep some secrets.
You sure you don't want to mention what you just said?
No, because now this is when you get me into trouble.
I'll stop.
And Mrs. Smith goes, I can't believe you fell for that.
I'll stop. But where do you want to go, Smith? Where do you want to go?
Well, so I want to go back to Nick's question about the ward thing. I think that's from a positive perspective, not necessarily a negative perspective. And again, from my perspective, from working in all these jurisdictions around when they have these ward or they have these districts in the other counties. So, I mean, just simple little math. We have roughly 50,000 people divided by 5. That's 12,500 people.
And you can go, you could definitely develop a ward system that works. And you could, if you wanted to go crazy, you could have divide 4 wards and 1 mayor elected at large.
So I live in the Charlottesville, not that I do, but let's assume I live in the Charlottesville half of Lachlan Hill, right? That's in Charlottesville.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I live, right?
Yeah.
And how am I really going to understand somebody living in Fifeville, right?
That's why you're pro-ward.
That's why I'm pro. How am I really going to understand that? So if we end up with 2 folks out of Lachlan Hill in the Charlottesville portion of it, which is about that big, it's
Another example is Willoughby.
whatever it may be, to go to Rory's comment of the 7-something number. Well, that's probably what that price point is over there. Not probably, I know that's that price point over there. How can that person really understand.
By talking to the people that live in Fifeville.
It is. How can they understand? I am a believer. No one gets into local politics to make money.
Oh, for sure.
To have power.
Without doubt.
They want to make the community
Well,
better.
the power.
They want to make the community better. I firmly believe that.
I'm in it for the people. I'm in it for the power.
But that's pretty evident.
Yeah,
so,
I mean,
So the idea that
I have an
if you-
empire, a
if you-
world galactic empire.
If you have that challenge in front of you of representing the entire city,
Luke, I'm your
they
father.
will. The city will come to you and send you emails. I mean, you know, as someone who's on just a number of boards, you get many emails.
I do.
Many robo emails.
I do.
What we call AstroTurf, which is not true grassroots. These ideas are out there, and you really do work hard to get to know the community that you represent. I think the city councilors currently are working under the system they have. I'm questioning the system they have.
So Fluvanna County has half the amount of residents and has a district system.
Well, I think counties are different. I think counties are required to have.
No, I understand that. I'm just
districts.
looking at body count versus representation, right? As many folks that you're representing on that.
And this is going to become more impactful as the numbers from the census come out and we look at redistricting.
Sure.
Albemarle County, for instance, made a decision 30 years ago to have every district include a portion of the growth area and a portion of the rural
Are
area.
you guys following this redistricting?
It's actually they're meeting today.
Yeah.
I'm hoping. Oh crap! I forgot to hit record on it. No, because I think today the deal is.
I'm glad you didn't say shit, because that would have been really out of line.
Well, crumbs. The district, I believe they have to have the map ready by tomorrow in order to start this is for the House and the.
And there's an internal debate going on because this is not exactly panning out like they thought it was going to pan out.
But
It never does.
But I think though that just as far as we know, so I think that the maps will be finalized today. I think they go to public hearing on beginning Monday, and then I believe that the congressional ones are later.
So,
Congressional ones follow.
Yeah.
so what impact, if any, does that have on local redistricting?
None specifically from that group, because that group is focused on the state level. But the local redistricting will come to play in the next. I think it's in the next year. I believe that they re-examine the lines.
2022.
Yeah. But I think
Let's get
it's
to a comment from Rory.
Okay.
Stolzenberg. Rory Stolzenberg, this is quite a long comment, but
Really?
Rory, I appreciate your perspective very much. So we're going to read
I
this
tell you
entire
what,
comment here.
anytime he opens up his mouth on
Roy's a
any
smart
meeting
guy.
that I'm part of, I learn a little.
Okay, so Rory, I'm going to read this entire thing here. This is very long. The idea that demographic data discredits any group is yours, Neil, not mine. Actually, the email in which I sent that data to PC Council, Planning Commission and Council, included an explicit emphasis that everyone's opinion matters. It would be planning malpractice to conduct public engagement without an understanding of which groups are being successfully engaged and which are missing from the process. We received about 125 emails from CFRP, incidentally, expressing concern that a, quote, vocal minority, end quote, was having outsized influence over the process. How would one determine that without knowing the representativeness of your feedback sample?
That's fair enough, and the reality is the Planning Commission and City Council also received a lovely note from the Free Enterprise Forum about the FLUM. I believe there were over 2,000 comments on the FLUM just in this iteration. I'm sure that Rory read mine with great enthusiasm.
Did you, Rory?
One of the 2,000 comments.
We got to actually come in. I can share the mic, and this will
I
be a
am
lot of
happy.
fun.
I am happy that there's this much engagement in a future land use.
So
map.
as you were speaking, I was thinking of a question. Do you think this much engagement will be during the rezoning process?
it depends
Same
on how it
question for
goes.
Rory. by the way.
It certainly depends on how they approach it, and I would suggest that people will understand. More people will understand. This is really change. This is not a color on a map. This is impacting.
That's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned that same involvement does not translate to what really matters, which is the zoning. I hope it does.
Well, at the same time, I think a lot of it's going to come down to the specifics of the land and the topography. That's why I want to take this walk down Cherry Avenue to say, all right, what would it really look like to put 12 units? What are the retaining walls? What are you going to have to do curb and gutter?
It's real meat and potatoes
Yeah,
stuff.
and so doing that in a zoning code in a community such as this, I mean, we've already done that for the last 20 years. It just takes the extra step of having to congregate the properties and go through these planned unit developments, which is where most of the density has been built in this city over the last 20 years,
And
25
most
years.
folks don't know there's a third portion of this, right? So there's the comp plan, right? There's the zoning, and then there's the subdivision ordinance, what has to match the zoning ordinance, and more than likely it doesn't. I know it's meat and potatoes, stuff like that, but if they have to learn how to match each other.
But they're going to need to be adjusted sequentially.
You got the CAC in the house.
Who?
One of your favorites. the
Oh, I
CAC.
love the CAC.
Oh, it's
CAC.
11:28.
Time to go.
The Crozet Community
Hey, Roy,
Advisory
I just
Committee.
real quick. Roy, thank you for chiming in.
Yes.
Thank you.
Roy
Thank you for doing that, man.
So this is from Mark McKinney. We had Mark McKinney on the program.
Mark's a
I believe
sharp
it was
guy.
Monday. Mark is a sharp guy. Ward system. This is Mark's take on the ward system. Rory, I'm curious of your take on the ward system as well. Mark McKinney from the Crozet Community Advisory Committee says this: ward system could create career politicians. That's what I said. However, I think there is more stake in the game for those elected representatives to truly represent, quote, the people, end quote, of their district. Elected officials would be forced to show what they have done that has benefited their district in order to obtain re-election. This gives challenges the opportunity to show that the incumbent has or has not done to benefit the district. Last paragraph. But do most people who vote based on what letter is in the parentheses after the candidate's name, R or D or I, and not actually based on a candidate's impact, policy, or strategic vision plan for the community? I would say most people in this town are voting based on party.
But it's not just that.
You disagree?
I disagree.
Then
I
how
dis-
have the
I disagree
Democrats
with
stayed
you.
in office for so long?
There's been two factions of the Democratic Party in
Yeah.
this community for 40 years, and there still is.
You're talking to what? The DSA?
No.
And then more traditional
No,
Democrats?
They're
Moderate?
newcomers. No, if you go back and look at, well, I don't want to go too much into this right now without having the research in front of me, but there's been that. There's been the wing of which Dave Norris was on one side, and then there's the more establishment politics. And I think that you can best look at this by going back and looking at the policy platform of the group EPIC, Equity and Progress in
We
Charlottesville.
talked
back
about
in,
this on the mall.
back in 2017. And I think that, I think if you look at that, that shows you the political factions in Charlottesville.
But you mentioned on the mall earlier this week
I
that
said no such thing. I was never there, sir.
Well, no, I'm choosing my words carefully. You mentioned that Epic is kind of on the sidelines now.
Well, they didn't run a candidate, unless you count Mayor Walker. They didn't run a candidate, and so in the
Would you
battle
count
of
her
ideas, they endorsed her, but I don't. But then they sort of went away after August 2017. That group sort of faded away from a thing, but it's still there because all of those folks who are on the steering committee are still very active people in this community. Jeff Fogel. I'm sorry, I'm blanking. This is I don't have it in front of me here.
But the question that was raised by Mark, which is a good one, are they voting a party line? The reality that I see in local politics goes back to Mayor Koch at New York.
Oh,
There's
God.
not a Republican or Democratic way to fill a pothole.
Yep.
You're doing the job or you're not. That's true for the first time they run. Once any elected official is one.
Except with Koch, he didn't fill him at all.
Yeah, I know.
So that was a whole different
He got a bridge named after him, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah.
He did.
But if after you've been elected twice, and if you're doing any constituent service, generally speaking, the seat is yours to lose.
D.D. Smith was the other one I would throw in there.
Bill says Epic elected Walker. Got Walker elected.
I don't know if that's a entirely accurate. I mean, it's the people of Charlottesville elected Walker, and that's the thing. She at the time had the highest number of votes of anybody until Cena the next go round.
Bill Fogel, Norris, D.D. Smith. That's who you mentioned. Grayson has this comment. To Neil's point, Neil, how do you say that the community just doesn't vote D, R, or I? It seems like we have a lot of Ds around here.
We do, and I will point you to all of the Republican challengers for the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors and for the Charlottesville City Council.
In other counties surrounding.
Well, no, I think he's being facetious there.
But I think, though, that-
facetious. There are none.
There are none.
Is what he's saying.
But just to take a step back from that, I think we're at a point where politics has exhausted so many
Let's
people.
give some props to Dave Norris on the
Dave,
show.
thank
Yeah.
you, Dave.
Yeah.
But people are exhausted. I mean, that's a tough job. I mean, I
I'd love
looked
to hear
at
if he has any comments on this.
Yeah, so Dave Norris, here's what we're talking about. Would love to hear your take, Dave. We'll read it on air. Ward system in the city of Charlottesville. Should we go down the road of a ward system in the city of Charlottesville? Yes or no?
The
and
good,
why?
bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
But his question is right that there are a lot of D's on there. I will suggest that when I look at even an entirely Democratic board or council, I see a spectrum of political philosophies.
I would agree with that.
It's interesting. Not everyone sees the colors the way that I do in terms of philosophies.
Well, because you're more engaged. He's basically saying you look at Councilor Lloyd Snook, a more moderate Democrat, and then you look at Councilor Michael Payne, who's leaning more toward the socialist side of Democrats. That's kind of what you're alluding to, right?
Right. Again, but when you get down to, because see, local government is so into really stuff that touches you,
So
it's really difficult to make it a liberal cause to have a well-running fire department.
So what I was saying, all politics is local. Local politics is what matters. And that's where the rubber meets the road, where it affects you. That's why we have this debate. That's why we're having this debate for an hour and some odd
It's fun.
some
I
odd
like you
minutes.
guys.
is it? Is this fun?
You're having fun.
No,
I know you're having
any
fun.
opportunity to look across
He's just
the
wishing he
table.
was
Hey.
wearing the corduroy jacket.
Look,
I know you're having fun.
I had my Planetary Society shirt on. Can I plug the Planetary
Yeah,
Society?
Sure, whatever.
Can you open it so we can see the shirt a little more? There
It's
you
my
go.
Planetary Society shirt. It's a fantastic organization. For $70 a year, you can have all the information you want about space science.
It is out
Bill
of this
Nye
world.
is the guy. That's actually what
I
Bill
could
Nye
just Google
says.
the damn thing.
Yeah, you could. But no, it
Finish
is a
your
good
thought,
conversation. It is a very good conversation. But I will drop in the chat afterwards. There is the place to start if you're interested in all these issues is the most recent time this came up in Charlottesville, which was 2004, and the Election Task Force study. And it's about 25 pages, and it has lots of different. And it's not a pundit written thing. It was a group of citizens who were formed. I think Rob Schilling was the person who
Yes.
helped push this. That actually did lead to elected school boards in Charlottesville. That was the one piece of reform. No, two pieces of reform. Switching from May to November elections. That was the other one. And yeah, so I think, but that's a good place to study. And I think it's, after this election, we have some time we should think about these things and hopefully approach them.
I think after this election, the rubber's going to really start hitting the road.
The rubber never stops hitting the road in this community.
That's the point I'm trying to make and I can't overstate how much of a heavy lift this rezoning ordinance rewrite is going to be, assuming the flum gets past this at this
Before December 31, Neil Williamson.
Yeah. I'm going after this to pick up what I owe him because I lost. So and I admit it to everybody.
Wait,
I
what'd you
lost.
lose?
It was a bottle of something. I can't
okay.
remember. We have to go back to the tape. to figure out.
But Sean's point is correct. There's always a great deal going on in local government. It is always, it's like Men in Black, there's always a ship about to destroy our planet.
You just don't know about it.
You just don't know about it. And that's what Sean and I try and do, is bring out these discussions, bring out the underlying philosophical questions that are part of densifying, urbanizing, growing, being a city with more than 3 stories. I mean, how many world-class cities have height restrictions of 3 stories?
Washington, D.C.?
Its restriction is to the monument, which is...
But they have a height restriction.
They do.
That's when it comes.
They do, but they also have a lot of tall buildings.
And they
Sean.
have a ward system.
And they have a ward system. And they have the Marine Corps Marathon. Hoorah.
Can we get the hook
Simplify.
soon to just take this? No. Are we done?
We're not done. I mean, can we be done? Do you want to be done?
I'm joking. I just don't have my phone on me, so I'm all nervous.
So would you like something to write some
No,
notes on
sorry.
and all that stuff? Look, guys, this is a lot of work to set up the show. Jerry and Judah do a ton of work. Literally today, all I did was watch your candidate forum last night. I knew this was just going to be free flowing and have a lot of fun. So I just enjoyed
Better
it
now.
sitting across from you two gentlemen. shooting you know what. So this has been a lot of fun.
Well, I'm appreciative of all the folks that commented and brought real content to this, to the little bit that Sean and I brought to the table.
Yes.
Any more comment? Did Dave chime in at all?
He has not yet. He's watching.
Yeah, I'm looking to see if he's in here.
Yeah, I see him. I see him in here. And Mark and Rory.
Maybe he's not excited about the fact that he'll be sitting next to me on November in the governor's conference.
I mean, you got multiple comments coming in about the career politician with the ward system.
I just don't see.
Well,
I don't get that.
100 years ago, I had a client that was the Americans for term limits, and the argument against those folks that wanted mandated term limits was there's an election every 2 years.
Well, technically, it's an election every year in the
There
state.
in Virginia. This was across this, but the idea of term limiting folks, if you have someone that's a career politician that's delivering the goods, or in the federal pork, to the district, then you may be conflicted about it. Because what we found in that research was everybody said we want term limits except for my guy or gal. It's just like my thing about transit that Tubbs and I argue about. You get the survey and it says everybody's in favor of transit because it'll get that guy in front of me on the road in the bus and I can drive faster.
Or everybody's in favor of affordable housing, just not next to me.
There you are.
Thomas says this. You guys have gone talking about the ward system. Why not bring up the strong mayor topic?
That's in that 2004 study. It's part. I think if we were to look at the whole thing, that should be on the table just to look at to see, especially based on recent history, the last 10 years of history. With
Mayor alluded to that in the last council meeting.
If you go to freeenterpriseforum.org, you can you can use the search function, look up strong voters and strong mayor, and you'll see a number of posts of the Free Enterprise Forum and what our thinking has been over the last 17 years on the topic.
I know you guys are opposed to that, the Free Enterprise Forum.
We're not opposed to a strong mayor. We want strong voters. We're very much in favor of a ward system.
What you definitely want is more candidates to run.
Yeah, I think the fact that you have a choice is critically important to make an election valid.
I just don't see that happening anytime soon.
I don't disagree.
I think it will. It's cyclical. It's quite honestly.
You think strong mayor will happen?
No. More candidates.
More candidates
Okay,
will
got it.
happen, and I think it'll be when we have 3 seats available. You're going to see at least 5 candidates running for the 3 seats.
Well, playing devil's advocate with you, 3 seats available in the county of Albemarle.
Yeah, that's this and now. Again, can't step in the same river twice.
Okay.
But I already have heard from 1 or 2 candidates for next cycle in Albemarle.
There you go.
I wonder.
There you go.
I don't know where I heard that.
Well, let's not forget Steve.
That's what. So it's 2. I said 1 or 2. There's
Okay.
2.
There's actually 2 more.
So
about
you've been
to
doing
announce.
this quite some time, Neil. When was the last time you've seen this many unopposed candidates?
For the entire state, it's the highest that I can ever remember in my
same.
17 years.
I was thinking the same thing. I didn't have the numbers off the top of my head, but it felt like I've just never seen it this way before. It's why we came up with this coffee with the candidates concept, because otherwise, if there's no debates or more forums, Fulvana County being one, right? They're unopposed to get some information.
But to be fair, the argument that people give to me all the time is, if they weren't doing a good job, someone would run against them.
I don't think that's necessarily the
yeah,
case.
so
though,
I'm
right?
conflicted about this.
Because the pay's so bad, the work is so hard and time consuming, and frankly, you're going to have half the community hating your guts, and then the other half are going to be lukewarm about what you're doing.
In many ways, it's a no-win situation.
You can't win.
Yeah,
you cannot win.
Yeah.
Which
The
is
only way to win is not to play the game.
1985.
That's from War Games.
War Games.
Yeah.
Well, that's also from The Wire.
And you literally said that almost in the same
As if I'm a
tone
whopper.
and tenor. Very well done.
Lieutenant Daniel's
So I'm trying to
wife said that in The Wire.
Yeah, well,
The Wire, an HBO show. It's fantastic.
she
So
loves
how many
nerdy
movie
movies.
references did we go through today?
That's
lot.
a series, but a
a
movie
lot.
reference for you guys is The Many Saints of Newark, released today on HBO Max, the Sopranos movie.
Oh, that's today. Yeah,
I
that's
can't
right.
wait to watch that.
Also,
tonight.
Scott Aukerman's comedy Bang Bang World launches today, which is
Oh,
awesome.
very
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm checking out the new James Bond. That's where I'm going.
Bill
There's
says,
a fried chicken festival in Gordonsville.
And you can get well-hung wine.
Oh God, I love these guys. Neil, question for a comment for all you guys. The rule used to be nothing could be taller than the Monticello Hotel, 500 Court Square. talking about tall buildings, Sean Tubbs. Mark McKinney from the Crozet Community Advisory Committee. I think people are afraid to run for elected positions. Politics and elections, even at the local level, have gotten ugly, and people don't want to be dragged through the mud. That is so true.
And that's a reality. That's
literally what my wife said to me.
And we've had this conversation offline.
You experienced that.
I have personally experienced that. When I ran for the...
He ran for Flavanna.
I
Board of
ran for
Supervisors.
Flavanna, and
How'd that turn out?
Excuse me?
How'd that turn out?
Yeah, really good. Actually, it turned out really good.
In hindsight.
In hindsight, it turned out really good. I did pretty good, for a guy with a funny accent representing Scottsville in that area, Cunningham district. I thought I did pretty good. But the reality of it was, I can speak to this. I had people chasing my children down. I had people chasing my wife down with unsavory comments. That's just...
Don't need to mention that on air.
Well, it's the
My
truth.
wife's watching.
It's the truth. Oh, sorry, buddy. Yeah, that never happened.
Well, I think that's part of where we are as a
It was
nation.
because I was a Yankee. You're not a Yankee. It's okay.
But I think that's just where we are as part of a nation. I mean, we see that we've
So
seen
social
that
media.
at the.
This was in 2009, my friend.
Oh, I know, but I think though that remember, this is a country that's built on a revolution. It's built on that, and I think that I don't know if there ever was a mythical time when things were.
All you got to do is read history
whatever.
and read,
But
what
read
our
the Federalist
But
Papers.
at the same
I was about to
time,
say, read the Federalist Papers.
we are facing a country and nation and world where our supply lines are questionable. We have labor shortages. People don't want to work as they used to. And, and I think that in a lot of ways, what we're talking about is a labor shortage for citizens not wanting to step forward because they just don't want to bother.
But it rolls over to the
They
labor
also-
shortage
they also
impacts so
come
many
across
things.
the thing, well, what difference am I really going to make?
Right.
well,
right.
but I think that's kind of I think that's a good question for the.
To go back to the Federalist Papers, how they settled things back in those days was with two guns, and they fought
Well, how about
duels.
this
I was at my
just-
high school reunion, and actually, I got into a conversation for an hour about the Federalist Papers. So,
Did you?
yeah,
You
I did.
had your reunion?
I did at my reunion. I was talking
Okay,
about the role
okay.
of local media.
So how did that turn out?
I
Did
did
you
not.
win?
I did not get a subscription from this gentleman.
So this comment from
What I was
Nick.
hoping.
Ancient Athens, the jewel of historical democracy, function on a demi system, aka sounds like what Keith and Neil are describing as wards. Bill, I am not wealthy but self-sufficient, as are many of my neighbors. Tax increases created by the flum and the school realignments may be the tipping point that runs us all out of our homes in the city of Charlottesville, living on fixed incomes.
And that's absolutely the question is, because right now, Charlottesville, I think, is number 28 out of 39 taxed by the rate. And it with
Not
if
by
it's-
dollars, but by rate.
by rate. And
Good
the
stat.
challenge about that, if they add the 15 cents, it moves it to like 16. But that being said, that's a false number because it doesn't include the revenue that's coming in from Albemarle County. So the government's being run on that number, the other taxes, and money from the government of Albemarle County. So really the question that I'm hearing from folks is, why aren't we working for more efficiencies in government? Not once last night did anyone mention the efficiency study, which seemed to be the linchpin probably 2 cycles ago, that we're going to make local government more efficient. What I kept hearing last night was we're going to spend more money on local government.
So it's interesting. One of the comments that I wrote down in my little set of notes, and I can't remember, I'll have to go back and look at it, which candidate said it. I think it might have been Brian. Said, I don't want to do another study for the sake of doing a study. Let's get some things implemented, such as the efficiency study. They've done a study.
Well, they
That's
did
essentially paralysis of analysis. He doesn't want that.
Well, but also too, they did that study under Maurice Jones, and we're now 5 city councilors later, and I think
Managers.
that. I'm sorry.
City managers.
City managers. I'm sorry. And now, as I said in the framing for one of the questions last night was, we now have we have 2 deputy city managers that are on the ground. The new executive administration is in place, and the question is, can they do something? We don't have a public works director. We don't have a parks director. The 240 Stribling, which we haven't talked about, part of the confusion there was you had economic development doing one thing, and they hadn't told the city engineer the details. That coordination, I mean, it's now we have the people in
I've been
place.
trying to get a bond released at Nassau Street affordable housing, the land trust, trying to get a bond release, which, by the way, the city forgot to put a fire hydrant on it. This is a nonprofit that cost us $41,000 that we put in, and I can't get the bond release because one set of the city isn't talking to the other side of the city, and I literally have to park my butt there.
But I think that, I think
and
that
this is a volunteer job, by the way.
Yeah, you're working for free.
But I'm going to put out a theory. If we end up with a 6 city, and I'm not weighing in on whether Chip Boyle should say, but if we end up with a 6 city manager and a 7th and 8th and 9th deputy city managers, those divisions between those different departments are just going to continue to grow.
Because it's the leadership matters.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any comments you want to make on City Manager Boyles?
I
Because
think
that was many words to that statement.
I think
there.
in this case, it's
Well,
just
you brought
that,
it up yesterday.
well, I think you have this. I mean, I don't know the exact tenures, but city managers tend to stick around for a long time.
7 years. 7 years.
What's his face? The guy before Gary O'Connell. What was his name? No, that's not it. That's a Star Wars character.
Bill McChency.
No,
Who was the city
no,
manager
no, it was
before
not
Gary
him.
O'Connell?
Cole
Cole
Hendricks.
Cole Hendricks.
Cole
There
Hendricks.
we go.
Was
That's a
47
dude.
years?
It was up there. O'Connell was 15 years. Jones was 8, I think.
Statewide average is about 7
Yeah,
years.
and I think that's actually a good time. And I think that, but imagine for anybody thinking about a strong mayor, keep in mind, Virginia law does not allow you to have a strong mayor as you would have in other states.
Jurisdictions.
Like even Richmond, I think there's I don't remember exactly what, I wrote a long story about
It's
it a
no
couple
Mayor
years ago.
Koch, let's put it that way.
Yeah. So, but in a lot of those cases, it's going to be, you're going to have that kind of departmental you potentially could have that departmental turnover. And, it would be great if we had a city that worked. It'd be great if we had a bus system that coordinated better with other systems. Maybe that's there. But I think that, that's all I will say.
So instead of streets that work, Sean wants a city that works.
I would like,
blame him.
like a case in point. I'll just say this.
Sidestep that city manager Boyles.
Well, I don't want to
Very
comment.
well.
I don't have a comment one way or the other. I can say that he was a great choice at the very beginning of this year. I would say that I don't want to say anything about it, but I would say that having somebody with knowledge of how state government works and how funding structures work is incredibly important, because it's how you can suddenly maybe, and again, conjecture, if a project runs under, maybe there's a pot of money that's somewhere out there. That's the kind of person. It's relationships, as you said earlier.
It's all about relationships.
But to go back to cities that work...
institutional knowledge.
And institutional knowledge. Going back to what Neil said about streets that work, there's a guy on my street knocked on the door recently, and it was like, we got to get traffic calming on this road. There's a park here, and people are driving 50 miles an hour up and down. And I checked in with him this week, and he's frustrated because he can't get a
Who do you
single
talk to?
response. Well, here's the thing. I don't know. Well, I do know. But today, I'm getting out there. My housemate goes out, and there's the police are running traffic on my street today. And so something got to somebody eventually to hopefully start telling people, if you're driving down this road at 50 miles an hour where there are kids at a park.
So historically,
So at least, I guess what I'm saying is that there's different solutions for different things. Will that change behavior long run? Probably not.
historically, the wheels of government move slowly, and
Round and round.
It's one of my proudest moments, frankly, is pushing this roundabout in Fluvanna County between Route 53 and 60.
Wasn't that the first smart scale project?
That was the first Smart Scale project. I was also the first person to get a speeding ticket through that, so to add a little bit to that.
I thought that was going to calm traffic down.
Supposedly to do that.
You were happy for that ticket, though.
I actually didn't contest it. I went to the judge and said, "I'm happily going to pay this. This was a good thing," and it did its job. But there was multiple deaths there, but it took 5-6 years to make that happen.
And I think that's a good thing to hopefully hope for.
My point in saying
Running
that
out of
is please don't be discouraged. There's some wonderful people on this feed, that folks I see in meetings, that are at meetings, others who are listening. Do not attend them. Follow these two gentlemen. You can get.
Let me say one thing about the Chip Boyles decision.
Which decision?
The decision to hire Chip Boyles was conducted behind closed doors by this council. I considered it to be a bold and needed move. And I was surprised that this council was able to make
Coalesce.
that decision.
To
I don't know
coalesce.
that they coalesced. They functionally made the decision. The stories I heard were that there may have been some disagreements there, but they made the decision and
They had to
moved
coalesce
forward.
enough to make an affirmative vote.
Well, they
Agreed.
just had to coalesce enough to get to 3.
I
Gotta
understand
count
that,
to
but
three.
they had to coalesce.
And they got to 4.
Yeah, well, it's a closed session, and so
I mean, we can speculate.
We can speculate all day about a closed door, but
They got
the
a
bottom
yes.
line is
However,
they got a yes,
yes, they
and
got a
they
yes.
put somebody in place that had institutional knowledge,
Yeah.
that had the temperament, and quite honestly, I can't believe wanted the job.
That's the best point right there.
Because
Who
I
would
have-
want that job?
I know Chip Boyles well, and he's worked with some of the most difficult people, including some people in this room, that I know he knows how to
I think
manage
that's a reference
process.
to me.
Yeah, I was trying to figure if that was me.
No,
It
that
wasn't
was
you,
me.
Sean.
Yeah.
That was me.
He's complained about my reporting though before, so
Hasn't everyone?
yeah, I do all the
that was
time.
about
What
me.
were they complaining about?
Oh, I don't remember. It was just yeah.
Your reporting's great.
No, I know, but sometimes. Well, anyway, I would just say if I could step into what
Hey,
the whole
it's
thing
okay.
is
Let's get
that
carried away here.
is that to anybody with all of these issues, have an open mind, question the things you think you know about what you're looking at. Common ground can be found when you challenge your own thing, your own thoughts, and I think that there are opportunities for that, and I think that we tend to communicate us versus them, Raiders versus the Cowboys, or whatever the football team is, and we're not. We're all in this together.
And
Sports?
listening,
yeah.
listening, Sean, reminds me that idea of take yourself out of yourself. And anyone who's involved in these discussions isn't involved in these discussions really to fight generally. The goal is a better community. They may have a different perspective than you. Try and understand their perspective, because it is only when we come together that we get anything done.
So we have 3 rules here, right? The first one is we don't do divisive politics. The second one, we don't point, because when you do that, 3 fingers are pointing back at you. You got to look at yourself. And the third one is try to have fun and keep Sean in check. But
I think we've done a good job. Yeah, squirrel. Well, we should close. 'Cause
I
we still
can't
haven't-
do a song, can I? I can't do a song.
No, because
No.
yeah, we don't
Well,
have
it would
rights to
be.
music.
I know. I was going to do it anyway. Beastie Boys, Stand Together.
There you go.
That-
One closing question.
It's a
for
great
you.
song.
I read the Free Enterprise Forum. I'm on the website daily. Brent had a good analysis on Airbnbs that's on the website in Greene County. I was surprised that they've been disallowed.
They have been disallowed in the R1 district.
Yeah.
The reality is that I think it was 2017, it was put forth at a request from a homeowner that they be allowed. They were happening before, they just didn't regulate
They
them.
weren't regulated.
Now they are not only not regulated, they are banned in R1. What happened is there's a small community called Green Mountain Lake that originally, when it was first founded, was to be a vacation area. And there were a number of homes that went forward and received the permit to have a homestay, or a tourist lodging is what they call it in Greene County. Then there was one home that the person bought the house and travels significantly and wanted to do whole house rentals, and was doing whole house rentals. And there are always challenges when you do whole house rentals with how many people are coming and going, and the traffic involved, et cetera. So the neighborhood coalesced around the idea that we should ban them. And that is a good example of government trying something, the citizens not liking the end result, and then going through the proper channels to stop that activity. It was a special use permit. The challenge was that you could put the conditions on the special use permit. Now, all an operator has to do is sign a 30-day agreement, so they could perhaps only rent it once a month because it was a 30-day agreement, and they can rent the house as much as you want, because it is precluded by state code that you regulate 30-day rentals, 30-day and greater rentals.
that's exactly right. So they just kind of changed the math a little bit to go ahead and make.
I don't know that anyone's doing that, but
Yeah.
it could be done, and some would call that a loophole, and I would just call it the law,
Well, it's the state law.
state law.
So this is Dillon Rule pulling itself back into local politics. Interesting. Green Lake, Lake Monticello, both were originally designed as vacation communities. Most folks don't know Lake Monticello was in 1968-69 as a vacation.
Can you Airbnb at Lake Monticello?
You cannot Airbnb at Lake Monticello. It's not necessarily a county ordinance. It's an HOA.
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 HOA thing. You actually cannot rent. So if I had a mother and daughter in the bottom and I wanted to do long-term rental to Neil, I couldn't do that unless we were related.
Because the HOA can have more restrictive code than the county, because HOAs are covenants that you agree to when you purchase the home.
Hence our prediction, if FLUM is approved, the HOA neighborhoods in the city and the county are going to explode in value because they supersede governmental policy.
Right.
That's what we think is going to happen. Anyway, Sean Tubbs, any final closing thoughts? And
No.
that big brain that you have? You got a
no.
beautiful brain?
All is well.
You
All is
mentioned
well.
last
Thank you.
time mustache wax. How did that go?
Oh, yeah, people
I meant to bring
suggested a wax
I meant to bring
here.
the comb in today so you can see it. No, it's all good. I'm going for the sideburns to be bushy too.
I see that.
No, actually, this might disappear soon, but you'll have to wait until Halloween Day.
Okay.
Well, a month from now we'll be sitting down together. So
In
hopefully
costume, I hope. I'm committing. If I do this again, but before Halloween, I'm doing it in costume.
So you're going to
Neil?
do.
Neil's not doing costume.
Neil's staring. We try to do these either the first or the second Friday.
We'll figure that out.
of
We'll
the
figure that
month.
out. But
I'm not so sure the world can see Keith Smith in 2 Batman outfits twice in a row. I may be wrong.
But no, I would just put a plug to the folks watching, sign up for the newsletter, community engagement. You can find it somewhere. I'm going to get better at that one day, just not today.
Support Town Crier Productions.
Yeah.
Support Free Enterprise Forum.
It is, there's a blog post up this morning. Free Enterprise Forum isn't free. We do have costs, and we are blessed to have donors that support us and support our ideas. We don't have subscribers because we want everyone to communicate with us and argue about our ideas. We don't have members because everybody's important. And so I just ask that we're a little bit shy of our 2021 goals. If you have the opportunity, freeenterpriseforum.org.
I can speak to these two gentlemen. My wife and I personally are members of both. Please join them. They give out some great stuff, and if you keep on doing that, this way they can keep on coming here, so we can keep on having these long form discussions. Did I segue good into that?
Yeah, you did well.
I
It's good
did.
stuff. That was very nice.
I'm learning. I'm trying to get a little. It's only been 2.5 years. I'm getting a little bit better. So, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
This is as usual. We substantially go over. This gentleman has a show that he needs to get ready for in about a half an hour.
Yeah.
So
Leah Puryear, Charlottesville City School Board candidate, will join us, as will Thomas Miles, Board of Supervisors, Buckingham County, on today's program.
That'd be great.
Wow.
We're going to talk some of the CenturyLink issues with Buckingham County Supervisor.
So if anybody watching the feed or you two gentlemen have any questions that you'd like to have come out on October 15th when we bring in Juan Diego and Brian, please send them to me directly or in the feed or something like that. We will help get
I want to know what Brian Pinkston thinks about the parking deck. Sorry, that's an inside joke that yeah.
You know who we should have on the show? I've been spending some time lately with Pam Riley. Is that name?
Oh,
Pam-
yeah.
Pam's a good egg.
Good old
Pam is
Pam.
a great egg.
I find
Former
her to
planning
be
commissioner.
I find her to be thoughtful and deliberative in her analysis.
Yeah.
I really do think she's a sharp person in the community.
She's been offering a lot of insight and perspective, and I enjoy her. Pam would be great
So
for this show.
we're booked up all the way through October, but in November that'd be a great opportunity.
Yeah. You guys, thank you for joining us. Sean Tubbs, Neil Williamson, Keith Smith, Judah Woodcower is the director. My name is Jerry Miller. This is Real Talk presented by Yes Realty Partners. We'll see you in 29 minutes on the I Love CVille show. Take care.
Thank you for going over, guys.
Oh.
Hey, good job. Also,
Tell me when the mics are off.